I suggest just keeping this like casual thing going and
Sure.
going into a lot of like very official things. So, Marcin, if you could maybe do a little intro, tell us a little bit about what your company does, where you're based, how big is the team, these kind of things.
Sure. So our company is called Simteract, and we have started like in 2015. We started as a company that was specialized in creating training simulators. What does it
Mm,
mean? For example, in 2016, we worked with a US company and we created train simulator that guys in Texas were learning how to drive a train on that. So we were like a specialized software house that was focused on this training simulator. At some point, we decided, okay, this is interesting to have a few big clients, but still it could be quite risky because if anything happens on the side of your client and you have just a few big of them, it can affect you directly. So we decided to move to our own products, and we did it in the twofold approach. So at the beginning, still simulators because it was in our DNA and so on. And we started to creating something called Traffic AI. It's intelligent traffic system is like an external library or software that you can connect to your game or simulator, and it puts cars that act like in real world in your virtual world. And it happened to be quite a robust technology. We started to work with a company called Aptiv, the Polish subsidiary of the company. The mother company is on the New York stock market and so on. So quite a big company. And we, together with the internal team, we started to creating environment tool that was for testing and teaching autonomous cars. So this was something really from in 2019 we signed with them. So there was a few phases of this project, but it's super exciting because we put something small from our side to add to this autonomous cars efforts. And Aptiv works with Hyundai. It works with Volkswagen. So the big automobile companies that are figuring out how to do an autonomous cars. So the environment that those intelligent algorithms were tested and taught, we did it with Aptiv. And parallelly, we saw that in our team there is a lot of people with gaming experience because creating the games in the gaming engine and creating the simulators in the gaming engine are pretty the same at the end from the technological point of view. Games not only about technology, obviously. So we expand our team, and we decided because we are all gamers too. We've got our favorite genres and so on. For example, I love strategy games. I try to not to play too much because I'm sinking into it. But we stick to our DNA. We stick to our DNA like simulation games, vehicle simulation games. And in 2019, we also signed an agreement with a publisher called Nacon. They are from France, and we are working with them. And yeah, it's now it's official. So we are working with them on the train simulator, but not as a train simulator, but for more casual, more mid-core players. We want it to be quite widely distributed and so on. Except for, we are creating this training simulator, but also last year we gather a founding round, and we have been doing another game called Carpool Simulator. And Carpool Simulator is like a Uber Lyft simulator. So you are a driver, you are driving people around a real cities in the real city traffic. So dots connect here because we've got this super realistic traffic AI library. Along with that, we have created something called city generator. So we are able to generate cities almost in flight from the open data. Obviously, level artists, level designers needs to put it all together and make it more beautiful, but it makes it much more easier and faster to create it that way. We are based in Poland. We've got 3 offices. The biggest one is in Krakow. This is the gaming office. We've got almost 50 people on board right now. Most of them right now are focusing on the gaming because we shifted that way. Here in Poland is amazing environment for growing like a gaming company. There is like a lot of interesting people, a lot of people that deliver something global and so on, and a lot of business angels that are quite clever guys and girls. So this is pretty cool. And in like a month and a half, we became a public company because we had
Oh wow,
IPO.
congrats.
Thank you, thank
Congrats.
you. It's a new connect Polish stock market, so it's for a bit smaller companies. But you know, we made our first step for this main stock market, and it was really exciting because we worked on that for quite a long of time, and yeah, the team was super excited about that, and
Yeah,
yeah,
I think it's a huge relief when this finally happens and everybody's like, "Oh,
yeah,
oh my
yeah.
God, yeah." Great, great. I'm very happy for you. So,
Thank you.
just for someone who's listening, who's not really aware, the situation where games and simulation kind of go hand in hand. I mean, we've seen
Right,
examples in a lot of different companies where when people were working like at Electronic Arts and they were building games, and then they got hired by someone who's doing autonomous cars.
yeah,
Or Tesla, they're hiring people who can do algorithm, and a lot of them are actually hiring people who can do environments, and especially someone who can do procedural stuff and like build them from formulas and generate spaces where basically the cars are going to learn how to drive, and there's like we can create like a bunch of different situations for these virtual vehicles, which for big data, like for neural networks, I think it's super important to have that variety. And that's kind of like the area where you were working for a while. But it's very interesting to me to learn that you are actually not abandoning games. One would
absolutely.
think that after the success with simulations, and if somebody wants to check out, there's a website with a bunch of like visuals and there's videos, and you can go ahead and learn. It's all amazing work. I'm just saying it from
Thank you.
the perspective of a person who is mostly, kind of absorbed in this kind of like high tech stuff. And
Right,
once I saw your traffic system, I thought it was amazing. That from the point of view just of like sheer, just looking at it, it looks like an aquarium. You just, the cars going around and there's like a bunch of stuff going on. That's very interesting. But also the idea that you are actually, with this system, you're creating very complex systems. It's not just like a highway or something. It's like interconnected masses of roads, and the amazing thing that the vehicles there actually have some logic behind it. It would
right.
be nice if you could maybe talk a little bit about what were the first steps that kind of guided you in that direction, because I have seen a very similar project created, I think, a couple of years ago with Houdini, where there was this guy and he created a sort of like an intersection or something like that with the vehicle movement, right? So I'm wondering, how did this kind of, what was like the first spark of an idea, the first spark of technology that kind of went in the beginning, and how did you kind of scale it and build it from there?
In fact, it was from the market. So we actually talked with our clients. We've got this project with trains. We talked with other clients. We created some similar project, and at some point, someone asked, "Okay, guys, we've got this word. We can fill it with trains and so on and so on. But still, we need some cars, right? Can you provide something like that?" And back then, we were like, "Okay, sure." It couldn't be that difficult to create something which in like intersection, but not with other cars but trains. And actually it was quite a nice project. We decided, okay, that's interesting. We've followed up a bit, and it happened that companies around the world had the same issue with that. There was no library that was good enough for simulation purposes. So we decided, okay, there is some investment needed, and we do it twofold. Once again, the one source of investment was some VC fund. Great guys. We worked with them for a couple of years, and it was, sometimes they are like a couple. They are like a part of the team when the times are a bit tougher. And the second part was grant from EU program. So we were able to put together like six talented programmers that for over the year they were figuring out how this system in the city environment should work like. And it was much more difficult than we anticipated at the very beginning, because we started with some different ideas, starting from full scenario like a decision tree, but it was too less, right? We also tried to teach the cars how to ride using neural networks, but it was too unpredictable. So we didn't know how to, we can't make those cars do things that we would like to do at some points. So we ended up with a mixed approach. It is called utility AI approach. So it's based on the needs. So each car has a need for something. So if the need of driving forward because of the situation is the highest, so the car will drive forward. But if then there is a need, that there showed up a need of turning right, turning left, stopping on the red sign and so on, the car will stop because the need is higher than driving forward. And around this, we put together something that is quite intelligent still, and still we have a huge impact on what the single car can do. And we did it in the quite open approach, because we knew from the simulation industry that there is so fragmented. There is a lot of systems that those companies were using. So we needed to create something which will fit each system no matter what. So also it fits Unreal, it fits Unity, some build on-site systems, engines, and so on. But now we can use it also in our game development. So the library, very same library that was created for testing and teaching autonomous cars, or it was used for that. In fact, at the beginning, it wasn't designed for that. We just wanted to have an environment that is alive, but it was so robust that we could use it to test and taught autonomous cars. Very same library. Now we are using it to create a game, which gives you the possibility to immerse into real world cities, because we will be creating the cities based on open data, and it is also quite fast because we've got a ton of tools for that too.
So it's interesting what you mentioned, that basically simulation is not one kind of like a magic thing where you just pop the number and everything starts working together. It's a library of different elements that have to work together. Like with the traffic system, you have some kind of set of rules that allow the cars to move around. You have neural part of it where the cars sort of think, but at the same time you also have an agent, right? And that agent has a specific purpose. So he wants to get somewhere faster, or he's like more laid back, or he wants to take a detour, or there's like a navigation system involved, and destinations and so on. So when people are thinking about simulation, I think a lot of them are thinking that it'd be like a very simplistic terms. You know what I mean, right? They think
Yeah.
that if we're doing simulation, oh, it's just someone's gonna build like drop a node and try to create something out of like whatever with a little bit of visual programming. But it's actually a bunch of different elements that have to work together. So therefore, I think it's like incredibly complicated overall. So I'm wondering, how do you manage this complexity in both in the development, but also in teaching people kind of how to use it? Because as far as I understand, like the traffic system is a product, right? So you can sell it to anyone and everybody kind of have to learn how to use it. So how do you kind of guide the user, so potential users through this process? How do they adapt it?
Sure. So first of all, we've got really talented team on board, and our development team is those are people who love not only creating stuff but also creating new stuff. So we are using all the new languages like Rust, for example. It was call of our head of development, Adam, back a few years. He said, "Okay, we've got something which looks like the C++, but it's faster, better, and more modern. So should we go for it?" And we discussed it, and we did go for it. And at the end, it attracts a lot of talents because people are loving this new language because it's much more comfortable than C++ and so on. So we can do it faster. We can add new things faster, even if they are quite complex. You mentioned about those clients that are interested in Traffic AI. So this is not like a library that you can find on Unity Store or Unreal Store for a couple of bucks or something like that. Because the library is quite complex and it serves as a could serve as a base for simulators, professional simulators, and so on. The price is quite higher. So we also support our clients. We can afford that to support our clients with some guidance, some maintenance, and so on. Still, the library is quite complex, and we're still working on that to make it a bit easier. It has quite comfortable API, so people can connect their systems via this API. It's quite well documented, and we are working on this system all the time. And not only growing the system, but also using the system for our clients. So there is two-way approach. One of the way is just selling the license for the library and supporting someone who is working on that. And the second one is, okay, guys, we've got this library. You've got this need. We can do it together. So on top of this library, there is additional service, let's say. So we are building something together like with Aptiv, and it's super efficient. So that's the approach here. And you mentioned also Houdini, right? So this is something that we are using a lot, not only for Traffic AI system, but also for our generators. So we can generate buildings, just drawing the basic shape on the floor of your scene. Houdini is generating it and putting it instantly in the Unreal Engine. So it looks quite nice. We can also generate terrains, so you don't need to carve the terrain, by hand, but you just spraying around the different colors. For example, the yellow is like a meadows, the blue it should be lake here, the red is mountains, and it goes through Houdini and get back to Unreal almost on fly, and you get like a terrain with mountains which are generated based on those colors, and then there you have lake, which is quite cool, and it's super optimized as well. I like this story because our art director, Arthur, he was doing PhD in mathematics. So it's quite
Wow.
unusual, yeah, because he's art director, so he has like a sense for beauty and so on, creating beautiful stuff, but also for these mathematics formulas. And he's like a biggest brain in our company for Houdini. I would risk that he's the biggest brain in Poland for Houdini, because we are using it on a daily basis for a couple of years, and we are quite an expert in that. So behind those systems, there is a need each time. We wanted to be able to generate the huge words quickly, so we created a procedure in the Houdini that allows us connected to Unreal, because we are using Unreal, using our different system and so on. And it's this is something what we would like to do. So with each game, each project, we are adding new tool to our stack. So using the same amount of money, the same number of people, we can each year do something better and better.
Yeah, I think one of the kind of like competitive advantages that companies like yours have is that you're in kind of in both markets, right? So you're selling the license and at the same time you're making a game. So when you're improving the product that you're selling with a license, you kind of improve it from the knowledge that you get from building the game. And that's kind of the system we see a lot in like Epic Games is doing this. And if you compare like Epic Games and Unity, and I had these conversations a lot on different. I'm not for any company. I'm trying to stay like
Sure.
in the middle ground there. But a lot of developers feel that well, Unity is not actually developing games. They
Right.
are like they're just selling the system and they're like services and that's great. But they're not in the in the dirt, so to speak, right?
Right.
While
Exactly.
while when you're speaking with Epic, they're like they really understand what you're talking about, right? Because they
Right.
have the same problems, and I guess the success that they are having, like with Fortnite, it's hard to figure out. Like maybe it's kind of the consequences of their tech, but maybe their tech is the consequences of the previous games that they've done before, like with Gears of War and so on. So my question is kind of like it was like a long prelude to that is there there are other companies who are doing similar things, right? So, and there are bigger companies where there are like internal teams that are doing similar things that you're doing. Because I know a lot of Houdini experts, like been writing a lot about them on 80 level. All incredible people, as you said, like big brains and amazing. And they're all kind of tinkering with it and trying to to solve basically the same problem. So simulations, generation, and basically building worlds with math. So my question is, since you are already on stock exchange, you must know this question. So what are your main competitive advantages? Why are you kind of poised positioned for growth, and what are like the next thing that you kind of perform to kind of like create bigger products and sell more of them and so on.
Right, right. So yeah, that's a good question. This is the question I needed to answer a lot before the IPO, definitely. So good call here. Yeah, definitely. We've been doing that for like 5 years right now. So from the very beginning, we wanted to generate as much as possible because it was faster and cheaper, in fact, to do it that way. And actually, our strength here is focusing on some niches. So we've got this traffic AI niche, and we specialized in that. So we're building bit by bit those smaller systems, and we are still quite flexible as a, let's say, startup, but we are not so small like a single Houdini guy or girl who is trying to put together stuff because we've got like a 50 people on board. We've got connections to those people who are willing to pay for our products, our services, our experience, because we work with Active, we work with some publishers, and so on. So in-house, we also can sell that. And this is, I know it's like a commercial talk and so on, but this is really important to do something what market actually wants, right?
No,
Because then you can,
I completely support it. Please talk more about the business because we are uh, we are in this area where there are a lot of creative people, and sometimes they forget that you actually need to go and sell it. So please
yeah.
continue more about that.
So this is something so common also on the Polish industry. This is really interesting because on the Polish stock market there is like a 50, maybe even 60 companies connected to gaming right now on Polish stock market. It is bigger in that case from Tokyo Stock Exchange, London Stock Exchange. So in the amount of the companies, the number of the companies, we are the biggest stock market here in Poland. But a lot of companies are thinking that way. Okay, we will just create product, and then it will just sell, and then we will have money to develop next product. And the gaming, and not only the gaming, you can always slip a bit, right? The gaming is hit driven industry. So if you don't hit that hit, you are ending up with, with talented people who work on some project for like a 2 years, for example, and you sold like a 10,000 copies, but you need to be prepared for that. So that's why we trying to diversify, right? So we've got this the simulation part of the company. We got our founding last year to be able to create our own game on our own terms. We working with publisher, and we are quite happy with the cooperation and what we are doing together out of this cooperation. So we're trying to diversify because this is the tough market gaming industry, and you need to be prepared and have plan B, plan C, and especially if you are a public company like we right now, still at the very beginning of our path, because we want to grow bigger and do better projects and so on. But still, we're trying to diversify, not putting all on the one thing, because it's risky, right?
Yeah, and I also want to applaud you for kind of like the decision then when you're building games, you build it in a certain niche, right? We see a lot of examples where like Paradox and a bunch of other publishers where they concentrate on a certain niche and they keep kind of pushing in that niche. So I know how to do like turn-based, like global strategies, and I keep just doing that. I know the market better. My players know me better. I have my own launcher. I have my own platform. I have all that data. So it's kind of like this, like a money ball, right? So you know you have all that stuff, and it's easier for you to go. The same with simulators because you know the market, you know how it works, you know what are like the pitfalls, you know what the players expect. So it's easier for you, I guess, to kind of go in that niche and work there and build a product that's going to be successful. Because as you said, I mean, video game market is amazing. There's a lot of stuff going on there, but it's incredibly unpredictable. And I'm sure if you had those conversations with VCs and you had those conversations, right? So they would ask, "Oh no, I mean, nobody wants to invest in video game companies because they have no idea what's going, where they're gonna get." Everybody's like, that's why there are so few like actual VCs who are actually doing investment in video games. And
Yeah, and this is, this is amazing on the Polish market because of the success of all of those companies. CD Projekt, right?
yeah,
Techland. There is 11-bit studios. And there is, a bunch of other companies that are not on the front pages, but they are quite big, and they are doing a really amazing job. And after, let's say, 10-15 years of having
mm-hmm,
environment like that, you actually have people who earned money on gaming and now are willing to invest in the gaming because they know it.
mm-hmm,
And this is like a smart money, right? Because you have, this is only, the only industry in Poland that works that way. It was
mm-hmm,
probably by luck at the very beginning, and by persistence of the initial, creators from CD Projekt and so on. So now we've got this environment growing where the stock market is quite open for the gaming
mm-hmm,
companies. The valuation of the gaming companies, it's, I would say, higher than the other companies. There is a
mm-hmm,
little bubble, I would say, but it is supported by the success of the other companies that actually got to the valuation that was a bit too high, right? So you've got environment, you've got money here in Poland to do it in the right way, and if you have arguments like we have, right? So we've got incomes. We are not like a classic startup that, when there is income, you are and because you need to show investors the income and they evaluate you based on the income. So we are generating income. We've got this technology in our niche. And talking about the niche, what you mentioned, the one thing that we sometimes talk about inside the company, CD Projekt, they've got Night City, and I believe Cyberpunk is a really cool game. There was some mistakes on the launch and so on, but at the end on the PC, it's a really cool game, and they've got this big living city. and they've got like AI for cars there, and I believe our AI is better than that because we were focusing, only on this part of the system for quite a long time. We tested it on these autonomous cars, and we tested it in the simulators, and now we are adapting it for gaming. And obviously, needed some adaptation, but we were able to do it quite fast because the system is flexible. So as you said, focusing on that niche, we won't throw it away after this project, this
Yeah.
our
Mhm.
tools. We'll just build the stack that we can grow and grow, so it will make much more easier for us to create the next game. The game could be in the same budget, could be bigger, more interesting, and so on. So yeah, focusing on that niche, on this vehicle simulation, we call it premium indie simulation because we've got we're working on the games that the budget is €1 million, 1.5 million euros, something like that. So this is something as you said, in Unreal allows us to do much more than Unity here. As you said, both companies doing a great job in the niche. I would say if we created mobile games, probably Unity would be a first
Yeah.
choice, right? But here, real worlds, real cities, real data, virtual world that mimics the real world. This is something that Unreal is much better, and we are focusing on being great at that.
And I have a lot of questions about like the traffic AI and especially in your journey in the with VCs and stock market and the Polish industry in general. I think it's amazing. I can talk for hours about it because I know a lot of guys from Poland. And but you have another project which is very interesting. It's like I think it's called CGI system. And could you talk a little bit more about that and explain what it does?
Actually, the CGI system is like a cover brand for uh, all of our generators that provide CGI. We also did some special effects, as it called, right? VFX, and so on. This was also part of the CGI. But the movie industry is I would say quite tougher than even the gaming industry, so we let it slide a bit. We focused on this real time generating, not pre-rendered, and this is something that we are focusing on right now. So yeah, this CGI we've got a huge experience, and
Mhm.
generating particles and still using Houdini for that. That was a huge part of our learning curve back then. But right now we mostly focus on this real time engines and real-time generation, and it moved from CGI being pre-rendered to CGI that could be used in the games, like a environment, like with those generators. It adds foliage, it adds erosion, and so on. So each time we adding something new, which makes our work quicker and more effective.
So I have a question. So if you look at the like at the development of visuals in games, like you can see real strides in the last like 5, 7 years, right? I think with the introduction of PBR, you've seen like a huge leap in like the way the game looks, and then now you have all those generators that you produce and a bunch of other companies are doing, and they launched like AI powered tools. Like I think Nvidia is very big on this front because they want to sell more of their cards, so they kind of apply them and add the new features on them, so you would buy more. Because as their CEO said, like when you buy more, you save more. That's what they say.
Yeah.
But my question is like, what do you see are like the main directions, like the main territories where like computer real-time graphics is gonna go in the next 7 years? Like what are the areas where if you're a student or like if you're a young developer, what do you want to study more? Where do you think like the next ball is gonna drop?
Yeah, that's quite an interesting question because, as you said, those two words are on the collision course, right? Because we've got these real-time engines which are much more flexible, and you can check, redo, try it again, and it gives you possibility to interact with the environment. But still, if it's not pre-rendered today, it looks like not real, right? With this pre-rendered stuff in the VFX industry, in the movie industry, you can at this point can call where's the difference sometimes, right? Because it's so good. It's still gonna take some time, but I would say the real-time engines are also the future for the movie industry and so on. Probably I wouldn't dare to guess where it end up, if it's gonna be like motion capture and having faces of actors and so on, and putting them in real time on the, because it can be done right now. It's still not perfect technology. Or we can mix those scenes. We will make mixed reality. The director Cameron, when they were shooting Avatar, he had this technology that they developed, which showed him in real time how the scene looks like. It was pretty crappy technology because it was like a 12 or something like years ago, right? But
Yeah.
the progress here is getting quicker and quicker. Actually, people who are working on VFX is looking inside quite deeply in those real-time engines. There is Polish company called Jesus. They are big. Okay. Oh man, my friend will kill me because I wanted to talk about him right now and I forget the Platige Image. Of course. Okay. Oof. Platige Image. They were working on a bunch of great stuff. They were nominated for Academy Award, for an Oscar, for a short movie they did like 10 years ago or something like that. And right now, this is pretty funny because they are still focusing on creating special effects for movies, but also they said in their strategy they would like to move a bit to the gaming industry as well. So the people who are creating great CGI for movies are trying to build their muscles in the gaming industry, let's say. So for me, it's a clear sign, because they are on the market for 20 years, maybe even more.
Yeah.
There is a clear sign that the collision here is it's gonna happen at some point. So I would say, if you are a student and you would like to work on the 3D graphics, definitely the real-time engines is something what you would like to pursue. The real-time game engines like Unreal or Unity, and something what allows you to generate, as you said, in a procedural way. So Houdini is something great, and in this matter, and you can connect it. It works together quite nice. So at some point, probably it will start moving to this gaming engines, but some time needed still.
It's I think maybe in the future it's all gonna be like one tool, because Epic is already like kind of like the acquiring all the companies that are doing everything. They have like Magascans, which they can build environments, and they can do like they have MetaHuman, right, which they also bought, right? So they now have this realistic character construction set. So the last thing they need to buy side effects, and then they will have like the whole package, and then who knows what's gonna happen.
Yeah, you're probably right. And for gaming, the realism is also something that is demanded these days. So definitely the direction is the same, right? Realism
and it's becoming cheaper, to do. I think it's more expensive to do a stylized game right now than if you do like a realistic one, because you can just download the assets and everything, put it like like you said in the Houdini, just paint the biomes, and you populate everything. It's just like boom, and it's ready. Like, and then you need to just hire an artist to kind of like do some vistas and all the
exactly. We tried to we made like it was like R&D project. We have a video of a real train track. We took the one from Prague because it was quite nice from for our purposes, and we recreated it using our systems that can procedurally created it, and then put like a 2 weeks of level art and level design there. And if I showed you, some exact places, it would be totally difficult to tell which one, and it was in Unreal Engine, which one is CGI and which one is real world. I tested it on my wife, and she said, "Yeah, this one is definitely CGI because the weather, even if it's big, it's still nice. You know
Wow.
sky and so on." So, but the pictures, it was half seriously, obviously, because the pictures were really close to each other. Obviously, it was one frame or a couple of frames when you got that feeling. When it's in movement, it changes a bit. But this is the beginning, right? We've got like we're not ending here with Epic is doing amazing job, as you said, with this buying companies and putting it all together to creating real worlds. And as you said, it's probably easier to create the real world than No Man's
Yeah.
Sky, for example, right?
Yeah, totally. Which is also procedural, by the way. It's also procedural,
That's
yeah.
right. Yeah, sure.
So I think like to kind of wrap up, I have another question, like the last one probably. So you mentioned like the kind of movie industry and the video game industry, they're kind of colliding, and they're colliding both like in terms of like the demand because the younger generation they want to play more games, but I think there's also this underlying thing where the management systems and the way that we approach film and games are different. And while movie industry is still like hit driven as you mentioned, and it's just kind of growing bigger and bigger. And if you look at the market, there's like one company, Disney, right now, right? And it controls like, I don't know, like 60-70% of the whole box office. And they are using older management systems, right? So they are applying kind of like the older templates that serve them well right now. And in games, you have a lot of very young companies, like if you look at the CD Projekt, for example, which are growing tremendously, which are building these amazing experiences, and at the same time they're flexible and so on and so. My question is like from the business perspective and from the management perspective, what were like your biggest kind of lessons that you learned, like the biggest thing that you kind of when you combine this tech approach and creative approach, like what are the tools that let you guide this ship, right, and make sure that it stays afloat at the same time you know where to go. So how do you manage that?
Sure. I'm more from the, let's say, startup industry. I started doing stuff and so on. And, I was always looking to Silicon Valley because, that's the main place in the world when you are talking about startups. So all of the agile approaches, all of the technology that can be used in the really agile way, and the way of creating products, the way of innovating, the histories of the companies and so on. So this is probably not only me, but that's the gaming industry, the bunch of people who are trying their best. They are experts in their fields, and they just testing, just trying to figure it out, what is the best for the best approach for the game that they're creating and so on. And from the second perspective, you mentioned Disney, and I will also mention Pixar, which is now a part of the Disney. But Ed Catmull, the one of the creators of Pixar, had wrote the book called Creativity Inc. And the book is so amazing because when I
It's a
read
great
it,
book.
it was like, man, you are just talking about gaming industry.
Yeah.
they were really heavy in the technology from the very beginning. So
Yeah.
obviously they did
Mhm.
pre-render, but the basic stuff that is like a common right now in 3D CGI, it was done by Ed Catmull and the guys around him back then in 90s or 80s even. So it was super cool to read that book and say, okay, we've got quite similar problems here. So as you said, those we are using the management techniques that are definitely from the technology companies, from the startup companies and so on. Agile, Scrum, sprints, burning charts, story points, different for programmers, different for art department, because it works quite different. We've got epics, we use Jira and so on. So everything what can be taken, the best from the technology companies, we are taking that. And at the same point, we're trying not to lose creativity. And this is something which can be learned from the maybe not movie, but 3D movies industry, like Disney, like Pixar, and the stories. It's not easy, right? It's not so simple to do it that way. But you can mix that, trying to figure out. There is, the young people who are creating games, and young people who are creating startups. They're eager to share the knowledge. You've got a
Yeah.
lot of good stuff in the web. You've got great books about agile. There is agile in web development, even the really good book, and so on. So we're trying to adapt all the newest stuff to the design thinking and so on, to the creating games. So because we are technology company, it's obvious. But from the other perspective, we also telling the stories, even if the story is quite simple, or we are creating words, and the words need to be fun for players. So I believe at some point, the movie industry is like more than 100 years old, right? Something like that. So they have their status quo. They know what is working. They know what's not working. Obviously, they've got this disturbance of COVID last year, so they needed to change the channels to deliver their goods, but they would need to transit on some level. They would need to transform to be more technology companies. I believe so. So those companies who will manage to do that, and that's why probably Disney acquired Pixar, because they were much more technology company than Disney back then. So yeah, the movie companies will be probably the technology companies as well. Or if they wouldn't manage to do that, we will be those movies
Yeah.
companies,
Movie
like the
companies.
gaming industry. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we will end this conversation with a quote from SAFE, where when you do like a study in SAFE and you do like the seminar, they say like any development is software development right now, right? So that's why SAFE works so well. Anyway,
Exactly.
Marcin, it was amazing talking to you. I had a lot of fun. So would love to do another conversation, maybe somewhere down the line when you have more time and so on. But we'll leave the links to the description and everything, and to the video and to the podcast, so you could everybody's interested can go on the website and learn more about the studio. Maybe shoot you an email if there are some young engineers who want to work in this field. Please go work with Marcin. I'm sure he'll be happy to hire you guys. Anyway,
Definitely,
yeah.
definitely. So thanks
Thank you
for
so much
having me,
for your time.
and take care. Take care. Bye bye.
Thank you. See you. Bye bye.
See you.
Thanks for enjoying another episode of the 80 Level Roundtable podcast. Check out upcoming episodes on the 80 Level website at 80.lv. Join our career site at 80.lv/RFP. And share our podcast with friends and on your social networks.